Hi, my name is Benjamin, and welcome back for our third episode about how to create an iOS app called New Me, which is our habit tracker. So for this episode, I will go a little bit more into details into Swift UI. We will create the second view, which is the habit list view, where we will be able to see what we want to work on, our habit tracker, the streaks and all. So it's just going to be the implementation of the UI for now. So before I start, I will let you some time to work on it and try to implement whatever you know. But I want to show you how to create a new view. So to create a new view, on the sidebar, you'll right click, you'll see new file. In a new file, you will want to create not the Swift file that you see on top. Make sure you select Swift UI view. The reason for it is that whenever you want to create some graphic interface, you'll need to use the UI. If you want to create logic, you'll go with the Swift file. My God. So let's click on this one. And I want to save that as habit list view. So this is going to be containing my habit list that I want to work on, basically. And you can see it's been created inside the project. I do want to move it inside New Me here, so it's all organized properly. So I have my habit list view, and I still have my welcome view here. You will see for the habit list view, it has the hello world again. So what I want you to do is you can delete this. And based on the previous video, I want you to look at this image here. What I want to implement today is the header, which is kind of like some sort of like slogan. You can go with the same that you see. You can create something else. Feel free to personalize it as you want. If you want to use it for your portfolio or something, it's always better to maybe personalize it so you don't have the same as everyone else. Otherwise, we will implement the date, the streak, and I will implement a list of buttons. So there's multiple ways to implement these. I really like the look of that. So I want to try to implement it the way it was implemented. So I go with buttons. I won't go and implement some new objects in the Swift UI for now. So you'll be able to create some habit with those little image and all. And you can disregard the little pie button for now. You can disregard the little calendar for now. And you can disregard also the navigation bar for now. So basically, it's a very simple app that's going to have a few text item and a button. And I want to challenge you to create that button using a similar layout as this one here. So if you want to try to implement it by yourself, do a pause of the video. And after that, I will go ahead and implement the solution. So don't worry if there's any issues or if you're stuck, just unpause the video and follow with me, okay? So I'll give you 2 seconds to pause. All right. So I hope it wasn't too hard for you to implement it. If you managed to implement it, congratulations. Otherwise, there's no problem. We'll go ahead and implement it together. So to start to implement that, if you look, the way it's created, it starts from the bottom. You kind of have a list, a vertical list. So you'll want to use a VStack to be able to implement each item into the view. Once you have that VStack, sorry, I'm going to switch a lot between the two. I can probably move that actually aside, so it's going to be a little easier. Once you have that VStack, what you want to do is you'll create a text element, text object, and you'll create something, what it is in there, or you can write your own, or you can write whatever I write. So for me, let's write, don't forget what made you start this. And I will show you something new. When you write a string, you can do a \n. And what it's going to do, it's going to create a new line. So whenever you go those little backslash, it's kind of like exiting the code, the string for one space after. You'll see you can use it in multiple formatting solution. This one in that case is going to be to create a new line, and you can write something else. I just want to say you can get through it. Perfect. So don't forget what made you start this. You can get through it. So a little motivation. If you want, I can also actually create a little note. So motivational header. I'll go ahead and create a comments for each item we're going to create. We will want to add today's date. We'll want to add the list streak. I want to add to it the list, the habit list. We want to add to it for the habit list, it's going to be a button, basically. Button, and I want to add into it the emoji. And we want to add the habit description. Title, description, and the streak for that one habit. And after that, we want to add, the last thing is the add habit button. So these are going to be the items we're going to see. So we have the motivational header that is added. For today's dates, we'll just start with the simple text as placeholder so you can visualize how it's going to look. And let's put today's date, which is June 16th, 2024. For the list streak, it's going to be similar to today's dates. We'll just do a text. We'll put a little 1 day streaks. Follow with the habit list. So this is going to be a habit list. I won't need anything for this one for now, actually, for the button. So we'll go ahead and create the button. I want to create the action label button so you can create the code that's going to go with it. And the label allow you to personalize the interface. And for this, let's erase. So for this comments, let's move it back into label. We will want to create in the label, the first is going to be the emoji. We'll just create a text object for the emoji. And for the description, actually, I need to create something else. Sorry for that. If we look at the model, let's go back to the model. The way the model is created here, So the way the model is created here, you have an image, you have the text, and you have the check mark. So the way it's built, instead of vertically, it's built horizontally. So you'll want to create a horizontal stack inside the button that's going to allow you to put the image, the text, and the check mark. Following after that, you need to look into how it is structured for the rest, which is the text, which is vertically. So it's going to be a lot of playing with both the horizontal stack and the vertical stack. So first, we'll create a H stack, which is going to contain our items here. For the button, And this one for the habit description, basically, which is the title and the description underneath, it's going to be a vertical stack. And after that, we want to get that check mark. So the check mark is going to be an image. And for the image, you can bring any image you want, but because it's a check mark in like a little box, what I like to do, if we go here, bring this over, we have this app which is called SF Symbols. I can always show you, you can basically, SF Symbols, I think you can download online on the Apple website. If you go Google for SF Symbols, you'll be able to download, and you can download which one you prefer. And basically, when you have this open, you can search for what you want. So I want to get a check mark. Let's see. Oh, I see here a check mark. If you prefer this one with the empty, or if you prefer the full one, I do want to follow a bit more our layout here, so I'm going to go with the full one. I'm just going to copy the name that there is under the check mark, and we'll go back into the code. So the image, we'll want to use a system name image. Oops. And it's going to be the title of the image. Now, please make sure that when you create an image, this is spelled correctly, because if you have one thing missing, it's not going to show. So make sure that you're not missing anything and you're not doing any spelling mistake. But once this is here, we have our little check mark. We have our emoji. I'll just put emoji for now. And for here, I'm going to create a text, which is going to be the habit title. I'm going to create another text, which is going to be the habit description. And I'm going to create another text, which is going to be habit streak. Or I could maybe just put streak 1 day streak. Okay, so you can feel free to create, instead of habit title, put the habit you want to do. Let's say brush your teeth, and habit description, you want to brush your teeth after every meal instead of 2 times a day. You put that into the description, and the streak you can put whichever you want. We'll go ahead and change it later. There's one thing though that I want to look into right now, and it's more of the emoji. And for the emoji, you can always use any source online and go for emoji. You'll go able to get the emoji website. You can search for any emoji that you want. So for me, let's say I want to get a fire for the streaks. So we'll search for a fire, click fire, copy, go back into your code, and you'll be able to, let's say, put a little fire here. So you have a little fire similar to the model of the app. And for my practice emoji, for my habit emoji, let's say I want to increase my meditation. Let's say I want to use this little woman that is meditating. So I have this emoji here that's going to act as our image. So we can see that we have all the items needed for, oh, we're missing one item, sorry. We're missing the add habit button. So for that one, let me just actually create a button. And actually, I want to get the templates. Action label. And instead of a text, so you'll see there's multiple ways to do the button. You could go with a text item, put a plus in there, modify the visual to add a surrounding or build it how you want. I do like a simpler ways for those add items. That tends to be just using those system image. If you look at add, you'll find a little plus. You have those little plus square and you have those little plus circle. I personally prefer a plus circle. Feel free to use whichever you prefer. If you want to use a rectangle, or if you want to use a button, or if you want to create a text and build it. Basically, those buttons, you can put whichever inside of it. Whenever you click on it, the action is going to be the same. So I'm going to use the image again. It's a little bit more practice as well for the image. You get a system image, put a string inside, which is our plus circle fill. Now that we have all our items, we want to modify it a little bit to give it a little bit more personalization and for it to look a little bit more like this here. So for the text here, let's give it a new font. And you'll see that I really like using the predetermined font. There's always options to customize it as well. It is a little bit longer, complicated, and you need to use strings. You might need to install the font. For now, I prefer to stick with the predetermined one. It's easier to keep the app uniform over, and like the fonts are easily readable. You're not having any problems. That doesn't look like a high school PowerPoint projects where you were using all the animation and all the crazy fonts. So I like to go with the predetermined font. For the font, I see that it's very thin. I want to give it a bit more thickness. For the date, something similar here. So we're going to go with a font. Let's go with, instead of title, let's go for title 2 since it's a bit smaller. And I need a bit more boldness as well. So font weight, I'll just use semi-bold instead so it doesn't steal the show. And I want to change the color. So you see that it has a different color in the image. So I'll go with the foreground style. And I want to use a color cyan, which is used in our welcome view. If you use the same color as me, I want to repeat the same color palette here so I don't change fully. And the list of streaks, I can leave it as is, or if you want to modify it as well and you want to get it, like, let's say the font title 3, why not? Let's see what title 3 looks like. Looks pretty decent. I could leave it as font title 3. And so we have our little header built. Now for the button, we want to go ahead and increase that emoji size. So we'll see a little bit more customization here. So we're going to go with font, but instead of going with font and let's say title, it doesn't change the emoji much. It doesn't increase it as much. We want to get like a big emoji, almost as if it was an image. So the way to do that, you can go into the font class or struct. I'm not even sure if it's a class or a struct, but the font, it is a struct. You'll see that Swift usually use struct instead of classes. So you can go with this font struct, which is going to be what is personalizing the font object. And you can go with, you'll need to go into the system and the size is going to be pre-selected. Size, you want to go with something big. So let's say I want to go with something maybe 60. If you want it bigger, go ahead bigger. If you feel like it's too big, don't hesitate to go a bit smaller. But I think this is pretty okay for me, pretty good for me. So we have the font size to 60 and the description. We can go ahead into it now. The title, I want to make it with a different color. So I'll go with a foreground style, and I want to keep the color orange. I also find that cyan and orange are very nice together. They go with opposite colors. If you are not really good with colors, you can always use some websites or do some Google research about how to work with colors. You'll see that there's some colors that are opposite that works well together, or you can go in the same color team palette that you're going to use different tones. There's multiple ways to work with colors. I won't go too much in details about how to work with colors. It is not so we're building an app, we're doing the graphic, but it's not a design course. So for this next step, we want to give that title a little bit more room on the page. So I will go again with just like a font that is predetermined already in the system. And I'm just going to use again the title 2, which is smaller, but that gives a little bit more kick to the title. And again, I want to create a little bit more boldness to the font. So I'll just go with a semi-bold, which is the same as the June here, basically. And for the description, I want to add a bit more to it as well. So the foreground style, I don't like that it is blue. I want it black. And now for the foreground style, I could go and just put black. You'll see it's going to be black. It's all fine. We're all good. However, if we go here and I go in the color scheme and I change it to dark, our text stays black. Everything went white, but this text stayed black. The reason for it is this is a predetermined color. It is this and it doesn't change. What I want to do instead of using that predetermined static color is I want to use a color that's going to change when I change the theme to dark mode or light mode. And there's this color that is a dark text. I don't think you can write it without using color, to be honest. Let me just see and test. Yeah, it doesn't allow you. So you really need to use the color. And it's going to allow you to access this dark text color, which is going to change depending on the sorry, I did a mistake. Let's see here if that would work. Let's see what that looks like. Dot label. Sorry, I need to use a label instead. So basically for the foreground, sorry, the color, dark text will keep black as well as the static color. The label will allow you to change, set it as a text, and you'll be able to change the color based on the color scheme, which is a light or dark appearance. And for the other step, I want to make it a bit bigger, change a little bit. So I'll go into font and I'll make it actually as a sub headline. I'm not sure if we make it bigger. I'm not sure if I comment this. It's actually smaller. Do I prefer this smaller or do I prefer? I'll keep it as is for now. If I feel like it's too small later on, I will change that. And I will go for the streak. I really want to keep that small. I'll go ahead with the caption. That might be a little too small. Maybe a sub headline. Actually, and this one I will keep as a sub headline too. I can read it properly. And it's going to look bigger as well on the phone, so it should not be too bad. This phone is a bit smaller than my phone. Perfect. So I do like this. I do like that. I do want to change the color as well. So this one will change to the color label to white. And so we have something a little bit more closer to what we want. One thing that you can see, everything is very crammed together. And to change that, like we did for the welcome screen, you'll want to play with the alignments and the spacing, padding. So for the VStack, what I want to do is start with the alignment, and I will put a leading alignment. So you can see everything move to the beginning of the screen. Let me just put that back to light mode. I just like to see the device, the corner. So the VStack, I have the leading, and I also want to get some spacing in there. And for the spacing, I want to get the... I think I get like 30 for spacing. So you can see there's giving spacing, we're getting the alignment done. Now, one thing that I'm not a big fan of is the spacing between the date and the streak. If we look at the image again, we can see that they're very close, but there's spacing, and spacing. We want to keep those two a little closer here. And the way you can do that, you could go and add the padding to each one of them. Underneath, go with padding, bottom, top, or vertical, and put, let's say, 15. So it's going to add some 15 padding. But to go with each one of them, it's going to become very hard and chaotic, and you're going to get a lot of code. One way to put those two closer is to actually keep in mind that each item in the VStack are being split. But if I add another VStack inside my VStack, this is one item. And if I put those two together, those two will become together. Now you can see that our alignment went off. The reason for it is our VStack starts here and ends here, but technically by default this is supposed to be centered. So the 1 day streak is centered in our VStack, while the VStack itself is leading. So in the VStack leading, this one is aligned to the beginning, it won't reach the end. So let's say I go here and I put alignment, and I go with trailing. So I want to make it at the end. You can see our 1 day streak didn't go at the end of the screen. There's a lot of room here. It's because it just go leading with the VStack, which only has the width of the string above. So we'll just want to go ahead and put leading to put it at the beginning of the screen like earlier. And now we don't have that issue with the spacing. If you don't like it and you find it's too close to each other, you can always add a spacing, add something small. Let's see, 10. Even 10, I feel like it might be too much. Maybe 5, just a little bit of spacing to add a little bit of padding there. And we're all together, space, space. For the next step, we will want to play with that button. So for the button, I like to add a bit of no, actually, you know what? Did I add padding for the VStack? I did not. So let's add some padding for the VStack. Make sure it doesn't get too close to the screen. It didn't change much at the moment, but the only thing that you don't see is that if this was all a text, like the start didn't fit on the text. If the text was to the full width of the screen, it would take the full width of the screen. So I want to keep it padding to make sure that if the device of the screen is different and the text doesn't fit the same, I want to keep some room around. And for the button itself, In the H stack, I want to create some spacing between each one of them. So the H stack, I want to get an alignment actually that's going to be centered. I want the image to be centered vertically. And I want to add a spacing between each image or each item of maybe like something like 15. If you feel like you want to add some more room, feel free to do so. Otherwise, for our button, I also want to add some spacing between the check mark and this. So here I'm going to do a spacer, which is a new item we are looking at. You can see that the text moved. Let me just actually remove the padding. You can see now our text is right next to the screen. So the padding, even though we didn't see it at the beginning, it's there. Now you can see with the spacer when everything moves how it protects us from getting to the screen side. So the spacer, what it does basically, you can put them wherever you want in the horizontal stack or a vertical stack. The spacer will create room as much as it can between the two items. So let's say I want to get all that at the top of the screen. I could go in my vertical stack, the V stack, and put a spacer at the bottom, and it's going to send everything at the top. So we have our spacer that splits the V stack description and the check mark circle. You can see it's very close to the border. We want to give a bit more of a button feel to it. For that button, I want to get the button itself a bit of padding as well. And or maybe I should just give it to the label. Sorry for that. Am I giving it to the label or the... I want to give it to the H tag. There you go. So I want to give the padding to center a little bit more. And let's look into our visual real quick. So we have our icon, the text, and we have a check mark. The check mark needs to be bigger as well. So we'll go ahead and increase that image. We'll go with the font dot system size, and I want to create something closer to that emoji that is closer. I kind of like that more. And let's look into the color. I forgot to change and personalize all of this, huh? The foreground style, it's gonna be orange. And I want to give a bit more room for our images. So I want to get a padding, but I just want to get a padding to the end of the image. So I'll put a padding that is trailing. If you want to increase the padding, feel free to increase it as much as you want after. I like to use the default. And for the text, the emoji, I want to use a padding as well, but I want to use a padding that is going to be leading, so we move it a bit away from the side. So we're getting closer to something, a button that looks more like this, but we see the text is not aligned properly. So in the V stack, we'll go leading, and I don't want this. Sorry for that. So now we can see the habit title, description, and 1 day streaks are all closer to the image. And are we missing something for a button? We want to give it a bit more of a button look, I think. So in the padding here, I can put a background like we did for the other button on our welcome screen. And for the background, I will use a color that's going to be a system color, similar to what we did for our labels for the text for the button. I will want to use a background that has a color that is a system background. And I will want to use a corner radius, and I will give it a shadow. Actually, I'll give it a shadow because I want to get a I want to be able to see the button properly. So to create a shadow, I'll just put this here. And for the corner, I want to get the corner radius of, how much should I give it? 15 maybe? 15 kind of looks good. So we have a button. If you don't like to have it the same color as the background, you can always go with another one. There's like always like a secondary system background that's going to give you a bit more tint to it. I'm not sure if I like the grayish. It does give you the advantage though, all these colors, to be able to change the color of the background. You know what? It kind of looks nice. I like the background with the dark mode. I kind of like it more actually, but we lost the shadow now. And to give a shadow, to keep a color that is there, what we want to do is basically change the color property of the shadow. So we're going to go with color. And let's give the color color of maybe the label or system gray maybe. I kind of like that. Let's see if that looks okay with the light appearance. That looks pretty good to me. So we can still see the shadow, we can still see everything, it still looks great. And you see I'm using those properties here. I keep using them. I know what I'm doing. If you don't know, you can always use Google search for anything. Otherwise, if you know the property but you don't know how to change something in there, if you maintain the option button, you'll see this little question mark. This little question mark, you can hover over, let's say shadow, click, and it's going to give you a bit more details about how it works. So you can see the function shadow, which allows us to change and add the shadow around the object. You have the property color, radius, X, Y. You have a bit of a description for each one. You can read about it. You can see some examples. So you even have your examples here. You can see that, let's say the first one doesn't have anything for the shadow. The second one, you have a little white shadow. So for the actually I'm saying that, but I don't even see the code here in that's giving the shadow. I thought it was giving a code for each one of them. I'm assuming it shows what you're able to do. You can see here as well that the X is going to allow you to offset the shadow horizontally. The Y is going to vertically. So let's say I go ahead and I add the X and I put 10. You can see the shadow moved. Or I could do Y and the shadow moved downward. I personally don't care for this. I'll keep it as is. The radius, if you increase it, it's going to give more shadow. It's going to be a bigger shadow. I like something small, very light. And the color, you could use the color like we were using this one, or you could always just use something like just white. If you do white, it's not going to work if you go on your light mode. So we'll keep, for me at least, this color system gray. Now, so we have something very close to the habit list. We just need to do that hat button to be able to make it work. The hat button, I want to put it on the other side. To do so, now we have everything leading. We won't be able to just move that. To do that, I like to create a H stack and put that button inside the H stack and put a spacer in front, which is going to move our button to the end. Oh, sorry, the preview is paused. So it moved the button to the end, and after I want to make it bigger. I find that this image is great, but like we can barely see it. We want to be able to see it, so we'll go ahead and font. We'll go ahead and go with the font system and size, and I'll go ahead and put something maybe like 30. You could always go with something bigger or smaller. You know what? Maybe 40 would be better. Or I could just go with the same size as the check mark and go with 50. I kind of like that. So we're going to go with 50 for here, and foreground color. I don't want it to, foreground style. Sorry, we want it to be orange so we match. We're not changing all the colors. And it looks like our habit list is starting to materialize. We have our button created, the template for everything. I think we've done a lot in this video. What I will do now is I will stop this video. The next video that will come out will go a little bit more into how to personalize the interface using code. So we're gonna go ahead and change the date to the actual date. Right now, if I keep this app as is, tomorrow the date will still show as 16. In 2 days or a week, in a year, it's still gonna be showing the same since it's a static text. So we wanna be able to personalize that. And we will want to start maybe looking into the button action. So jumping from the welcome view to our habit list view and start looking at how. So if you have any issues or any question, don't hesitate to comment down below. If you liked the video, don't forget to put a thumbs up or follow to keep track of the future videos that's going to be releasing soon. And thank you for watching. I wish you a great day.